Hi! Welcome to the Cozy Nook. Settle in, relax, and together let's enter a world that is full of wonder, is sometimes mysterious, and can even be sinister. In a land far, far away, where magic is endless and dreams always come true. Or do they? I'm your narrator, and today I'm going to be telling you 3 spooky stories to tell at a sleepover. Swimming lessons. Loathsome water demons were the first things that Heather thought of when she saw the gray-green waves of Crocker Lake. Last evening, Heather's grandmother had told her a favorite story about sea monsters that dragged people to their watery deaths simply because they could walk in the sunshine. Today, she stood on the shore of a big, mysterious lake where her parents had rented a cottage for the summer. The family, which included Heather's outgoing brother and sister, Andy and Amanda, would be staying there until school started. That was 8 long weeks away. It wasn't that Heather was anxious to go back to school. It was this place, the lake. From the moment she saw it, she was eager to leave. Heather's dislike of water was not new. She was the only one of the 3 kids who could not swim well. When she had been very small, her mom had taken her to the local pool for lessons. One afternoon, when she was running to join the class, she had slipped at the edge of the pool and flown headlong into the water. The impact knocked the wind out of her, and she had sucked in a huge mouthful of water when she surfaced. Choking and gasping, she had clung to the edge of the pool until the teacher helped her out. Since then, she didn't feel comfortable in the water and managed to avoid swimming most of the time. Andy and Amanda, on the other hand, loved it. Andy was on the junior swim team at school, and last summer, they both had taken junior life-saving courses at the Y. Nobody except Heather ever thought about the wicked sea monsters waiting under the water for unsuspecting victims. Each day at the summer cottage, the 3 kids walked about a mile down the beach to a special spot they had discovered. Then Andy and Amanda swam out to an old raft anchored about 50 yards offshore. It was nothing more than a wide, thick wooden plank connected to 2 huge oil drums. Along the shore, Heather would build sand castles, collect shells, draw, read, or sit with just her feet in the water and watch her brother and sister. They seemed to have lots of fun pushing each other into the deep blue water and racing from one side of the raft to another. One day, as Heather sat on the beach and watched them play a noisy game of King of the Mountain, she had the odd sensation that something was observing her. The beach was bordered by a dense stand of scrub pine. Heather turned and squinted into the dark patches between the branches. Suddenly, she felt something in the cool water touch her bare foot. Like slick, slender fingers, it drifted around her ankle. She shrieked and fell backward, yanking her foot out only to find that the monster was just a trailing water plant. She jumped up and pulled the slippery, leafy strands away. Dusting off her shorts, she turned to find her sandals and bumped right into a scruffy-looking, bearded old man. She screamed again. Now, Missy," the old man soothed, adjusting a pair of wire-rimmed glasses on his nose. "There's nothing for you to fear from me." Heather felt herself trembling all over, but she didn't want to appear frightened. "Why did you sneak up on me like that?" she demanded. He rubbed the stubble on his chin. "I don't rightly think I was sneaking up on anyone. I might be asking you, what are you doing on this part of the shore?" "I don't see why that's your business." "Well, actually it is. You see, I own this stretch of beach from the shoreline to the road. You can just see the roof of my house beyond those trees." Heather blushed. She realized that the old man was probably Mr. Patterson. He took care of the cottages during the winter when no one visited the lake. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to be rude. I hadn't expected to see anyone. You scared me." "I don't blame you for being afraid," the man said. "There's plenty to be worried about, but not here, out there." He pointed his gnarled finger toward a small island near the south shore, overgrown with bushes and towering trees. "What's the matter with it?" Heather asked. In the afternoon sun, the island looked harmless enough. "Depends on who you talk to." Mr. Patterson eased himself down to sit on a large fallen log. He picked up a stick and began to draw in the damp sand. First a line to represent the shore, then a small circle to symbolize the island. Heather knelt in the sand beside him. Oh, there's a real good reason to be careful of that place. You see, the way the tide has to squeeze in through here, he dragged the stick between the island and the shore. It creates quite a current. At certain times of the month, it can be really treacherous. His voice took on a sad tone. There's been an awful lot of accidents out there over the years. Heather wrinkled her brow, and she said, You mean people have died out there? Drowned? Oh yeah, in fact, just last summer, 4 visiting kids were drowned on the backside of the island, along with the 2 deputies who were trying to save them. It was real strange though. The old man mused, shaking his head. Alice Ann Taylor, one of the deputies, grew up around here and could handle a boat in almost anything. No one ever quite figured out how the current got the best of her. Some say there is more to contend with out there than just the current. Much more. There's an old Indian legend that says that those who die in these waters never rest. They just wait and watch for others to join them. Heather felt a shiver run up her spine. She thought of the tales that her grandmother told. She could almost hear the heavily accented words. They envy those who walk in the sunshine. They drag them down to spend eternity at the bottom of the frigid water. The old man continued, But then, there never seemed to be any witnesses. Last summer, only the 2 empty boats washed ashore, and they weren't talking. So it's best to just stay away from that place. Hey, Heather! Andrew called as he stood dripping on the sunny beach. Heather, come on! I have to go, Mr. Patterson, Heather said, standing and brushing the sand off her legs. Thanks for the warning. The old man frowned. See that you remember it. The following day, the family had a picnic lunch on the shore. After carrying the dishes back to the cottage, Andrew and Amanda asked if they could go for a swim. I think it's too soon after eating, their mother fretted. I'd rather you stay out of the water for a while. Instead, the 3 kids took a long walk along the beach, picking up shells and bits of twisted driftwood. They were well out of sight of the cottage when Andrew found an old rowboat. Hey, look at this, he said as he checked it for holes and cracks. I think it's seaworthy. Here are the oars. Andrew, Heather cautioned. Mom asked us to stay out of the water. She meant we shouldn't swim, Amanda said. I'd love to row around a bit. Maybe we could explore that little island out there. I'm sure she wouldn't mind that. Come on. Andrew and Amanda started to push the small craft out into the water. Heather thought of Mr. Patterson's warning. Please don't. It isn't safe. Of course it is, Andrew countered. There's nothing wrong with the boat at all. It's not the boat, she almost shouted. Her brother and sister stopped and stared at her. It's the island, she added quietly. Shading his eyes with one hand, Andrew glanced at the small body of land offshore. What about the island? Mr. Patterson said, Heather began. Well, he says the currents are too dangerous, but I think he was trying to warn me about something else too. He said some kids drowned out there last summer, and it was really weird. There's an Indian legend about this lake. Andrew glanced at Amanda, and a smile began to play at the corners of his mouth. Oh no, another legend. I think that crazy old man is just trying to keep everybody away because he has something to hide. Maybe it's treasure. He pushed the boat farther into the water and leaped in. Come on! What kind of treasure do you think it could be? Amanda asked as she jumped in behind him. Come on, Heather, Andrew coaxed. It'll be fun. Heather didn't budge. Tiny wavelets lapped at her ankles. I don't want to. Please, we could do something else. Building a fort would be more fun. Andrew tilted his head at her. There's really nothing to be afraid of. We're all together and we won't let anything happen to you. Heather set her jaw in refusal. Okay, if that's what you want, Andrew pulled away, but we're going. You can stay here all alone if you want. Heather opened her mouth to protest, but then she had the odd feeling again that she was being watched. She didn't want to stay alone on the shore or walk back by herself. Maybe her brother was right. Maybe it would be fun and she was letting her fears prevent her from enjoying her summer. And after all, she wouldn't actually be in the water. If they were all together, it would be okay. She took a deep breath and climbed into the boat. At first, Heather thought that her worries were unfounded. She actually started to relax. Andrew handled the boat well, and there wasn't much of a current at all. "I'll bet there's a treasure chest filled with jewels on the island," Amanda fantasized. "If I were a pirate, I would have hidden my loot there." "Avast, mateys," Andy sneered at his sisters. "Head straight for that patch of land yonder, or you'll be walking the plank." Amanda laughed. "We don't have a plank, dummy." Heather giggled too. This really was fun. Andy began to sing a song that he thought might befit a pirate, and the girls joined in as the mainland shore dropped farther away behind them. As they approached the island, however, things began to change. Although it was early afternoon, the sunlight appeared to fade. Without warning, the wind picked up and so did the current. Andrew fought the oars as the tiny boat was swept along. "Amanda, help me." "What do you want me to do?" Amanda was trying to be brave, but she could hear the nervousness in her brother's voice. "Take one of the oars and just try to hold the boat steady. I think you could swing around the backside of the island and ride out of it." He aimed the bow of the boat toward a small circle of land. "What can I do?" Heather asked. Her brother was showing signs of tiring. "Watch the shore. We have to get around that point, and we don't want to get in too close." Heather did as he asked. When they rounded the point, she was the first to see the people standing among the tangle of vegetation that extended from the small strip of beach into the water. They looked almost human, as if one time they had been. They seemed to be standing, not in the water, but on its surface. Whatever they were gazing directly at the children. "Andy!" she cried out. "What are they?" For a moment, the three sat in a stunned silence. Then Andrew found his voice. Row as hard as you can." Both Andy and Amanda heaved at the oars, scrambling to get away. The boat edged closer to the dreadful island. As Heather watched helplessly, several of the horrid creatures slipped beneath the surface. Then, from under the water, ghastly pale hands reached up and grabbed the edge of the boat, rocking it from side to side. Amanda stood and beat at them with an oar. She was the first to plunge in. Andy reached out to grab her and toppled over the side. Heather tried to hold on, but it was no use. She felt the boat tip and found herself sliding into the water, the frigid grip of icy hands. Even underwater, she could see the grisly, chalk-white skin. The creature pulled her down, closer and closer, until she was looking into its deep green, lifeless eyes. Its long black hair drifted around it in floating, twisting tendrils. Somehow, Heather broke free, fought her way to the surface, and gasped in a lung full of air. Screaming and kicking, she sensed herself being lifted from the water, then pulled aboard a boat by warm human hands. It was Mr. Patterson. She tried to speak, to tell him that Andrew and Amanda were still out there, but no words came. As his motorboat turned toward the mainland shore, Heather noticed that the wind had dropped. There was no current, and the island was completely deserted. She felt as if she were in a dream. Mr. Patterson took her to his cabin and wrapped her in a warm blanket. "I'm so sorry," he said as he handed her a cup of hot tea. "I saw the three of you rowing out. I tried to get to you as quickly as I could, but the motor on the boat, I couldn't get it started. These old hands are so clumsy." Heather looked at his hands, the same hands that had pulled her from the water. "Did you see them? Your brother and sister?" "No, it was too late." Heather looked into his eyes. "Did you see them?" The old man sighed. "I didn't see much of anything once I came around the point. Like an old fool, I was in such a hurry. I was trying to do too many things at once. My glasses, well, they slipped into the water. I couldn't see much of anything. I still can't. Everything up close is pretty blurry. I was lucky I found you." They sat without speaking for a moment until a harsh buzzer broke the silence. Heather jumped. "That's the deputy," Mr. Patterson assured her. "I called the sheriff's department. I'm afraid I can't see well enough to drive you home, and it's beginning to get dark. After what you've been through, I don't think we should walk. They've already called your parents." He adjusted the blanket around Heather's shoulders, and they stepped outside into the twilight. The female deputy slipped her arm around the girl. "You've had a terrible shock," she whispered softly. "You're all right now." Still stunned by all that had happened, Heather didn't even look up. Mr. Patterson squinted at the deputy in the gathering darkness. Her folks are over at the Ames place. You'll be sure that she gets there safe and sound? Poor little thing. I wish I could take her there myself, but don't worry, the woman assured her. You've done all you can. I'll see that she joins her family right away. Nodding his head, Mr. Patterson patted Heather once more on the shoulder and turned back to his cabin. Heather let herself be guided down the lane toward the place where the deputy said her car was parked. After a moment, she became aware that they were moving past the dirt road and toward the lake. Where are we going? She demanded. This isn't the right way. As she twisted away, the blanket slipped from her shoulders. Heather felt the deputy's icy hand. Looking up, she saw that the woman's long dark hair was wet. In the moonlight, she could see the horrible green eyes and a tarnished name badge on the uniform that read Taylor. With her last reserve of strength, Heather bolted away, running until her heart felt that it would burst. She didn't realize that she was still heading for the lake until she slammed against something cold and damp and fell to her knees. Where are you going, little sister? Andy! Amanda! Heather cried out in relief. Thank goodness, I thought... It was so horrible, I thought you both had drowned. She gazed up happily at her brother and sister as they leaned toward her in the gloom. How did you... Her relief seeped away and was replaced with mounting terror as she realized that Andrew and Amanda, dripping wet, were staring down at her with lifeless green eyes. No. Oh no, Heather wailed, trying to shrink away from them. Grinning, her brother wrapped his clammy arms around her as her sister said, Come on, Heather. It's such a nice night for a swim.